everyone. This is Adlane Fellah, Chief Analyst at Maravedis Research. Welcome to this new episode of Industry Shakers. Today, I have the pleasure to welcome Gary Bolton, President and CEO of the Fiber Broadband Association. How are you today, Gary?
I'm doing fantastic.
Well, thanks for accepting my invitation. I know that so far we have been doing a lot of interviews around specifically wireless, but fiber is a huge aspect of the whole broadband experience. And I know that you had just finished the one of your flagship events of the year, Fiber Connect 2025, which theme was Light It Up. So can you tell us what the main themes were discussed at the event?
Well, first of all, wireless is fiber. So, the more fiber we get out, the better we can make our whole mobile wireless network. So, we're really excited about that. But yeah, as you mentioned, Fiber Connect 2025 was last week in Nashville, Tennessee, and it was absolutely amazing. We had well over 5,000 attendees, and so every year we've had record attendance. So the event keeps growing, and the experience was fantastic. Theme was Light It Up. And we chose that theme last year when we started working on, we spend a whole year to try to really improve the experience every year and take it to the next level. And we really envisioned 2025 as a watershed event based on an anticipation the first networks would be lit up with the BEAD funds, the $42 billion of NTI BEAD funds. Well, luckily our industry is very resilient. And while BEAD might take more time than we had hoped, our industry's really stepped up. With hundreds of millions of dollars invested in creating U.S.-based manufacturing, millions of homes that now have been connected, and plans to connect tens of millions more because the market's spoken. And private investment, and that was really what we saw as kind of the big theme, is that private investment is connecting, homes across America fast. He's committed now to 60 million homes, and they just hit 30 million homes passed with fiber this month. So they're well ahead of their plan. Frontier, again, they've been doing great things, and they're on track to hitting 10 million homes by the end of the year. And with their merger with Verizon, that will be 40 million homes. So just does AT&T and Verizon will be 100 million homes. Winetel was there and was actually some award, won a number of awards based on their investment for $1.7 billion to get every home in Hawaii connected by the end of next year. T-Mobile is targeting 12 to 15 million homes with fiber. Brightspeed has over 2 million homes passed with fiber and targeting 5 million. Ziply, 3.1 million. Altice has already passed 3 million and growing. Consolidate's going to reach 70% of its footprint with fiber. It's roughly 2.1 million homes. TDS, 1.3 million homes. Google Fiber has already passed 3 million homes. So private investment rolling today at Fiber Connect. One of the big surprises for me at Fiber Connect was our Optic Path Rodeo. So we had an amazing exhibit floor, probably the best I've ever seen. And in the center, we had our Optic Path Rodeo. And, what's really exciting about Optic Path is about 3 years ago when we decided that we needed to really that labor was going to be the long pole in the tent for getting fiber deployed. Yeah. We launched the Optic Path training to train fiber optic technicians. And we started with a cohort about 18 students. And now we've trained over 1,000 graduates, 87% being veterans, and now that are all fully employed as fiber optic technicians. And so the rodeo, was the idea of, okay, let's take some graduates and do a little competition. And it was such a big hit to the point where now for next year, exhibitors are fighting over booth locations close to the rodeo because there's such a big crowd that wanted to see this competition. So anyway, it was just a super exciting event.
No, I wish I can attend next year. It's once a year, right?
We're going to be in May 17th in Orlando next year.
Okay.
So, which is also, opens the door to more Latin American attendees.
That makes sense. So let's dive into this whole BEAD funding mess, and how you guys are helping states and operators navigate that.
Yeah, well, it was kind of interesting. So Wednesday last week, we had at the summit, our last day at the Fiber Connect was our state broadband summit. and so had kind of the unique experience of being in the green room with a number of state broadband directors as the Commerce Secretary Lutnick testified to Congress and started sharing some hints on what the revisions to the BEAD program are going to be from his office. And that guidance was finally released Friday, so just a few days ago. And first, I just want to say that the Fiber Broadband Association has the utmost respect for each of the state broadband directors in their offices. They've been working tirelessly for over 3.5 years to get every unserved and underserved location addressed with critical broadband infrastructure. And the release guidance that came out Friday was a significant setback particularly for Louisiana, Nevada, and Delaware that already had approved, final proposals from NTIA. And then we also had states like West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Maine, who already have their final proposals all done with ready to go, and ready to put shovels in the ground. And so again, what we see is that more delays, so that they all have to go back and do something that's called benefit of the bargain round. And so they have 90 days to get this thing done, to open up, redo another round for applicants. And then NTI has another 90 days to approve that. So again, 6 more months that's delay. So we're going to miss the build cycle for 2025 and get into next year, which is a little disappointing. The good news is the program did streamline as promised. So Secretary Lutnick did remove a number of what he liked to call the bureaucratic red tape that were non-statutory obligations for operators. And so that should help speed the program and make it a little more easy for more people to participate, more operators and so forth to participate. So there's some good things, the bad things were just, the more delays, which we don't like.
Okay.
But all in all, we're going to continue to do whatever we can to support every state and territory and try to make, this program as successful as possible, because rural America really needs to be able to have fiber and be connected for the future.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for listening to our video interviews and content with industry shakers. I just want to share quickly, because we get a lot of people asking, how can we work with Maravides and what do you guys do? So besides the actual research reports, we have 3 ways you can work with us, from marketing essentials to marketing pro and custom projects. So Marketing Essential is basically a marketing program for startups, for small companies with limited budgets and limited experience and resources, where we can help them maintain a constant flow of content through our content engine. We hear very often, I want to do this blog, but I forgot about it. I don't have time. I don't have any ideas what to write about. I don't know what to tell, how to say it. I'm just too busy, etc. So, the program starts at $5,000 and provides you with a number of deliverables and outputs that we can agree on together. Those are 6 to 12 months agreements. For more sophisticated, larger organizations, we have Marketing Pro, where we can have everything that's included in the Marketing Essentials and add to it some of the strategic marketing aspects, such as positioning, reviewing sales pitch deck, etc. So we work very closely with both your product managers and your sales team. With the product managers, because we really want to understand your technology stack very well, so we can talk intelligently about it. And with your BDM and sales folks, to understand, and where the friction comes from, how we can reduce the sales cycle, which tend to be very long with ISPs, and really help them, nurture their leads and be much more effective in their work. And then finally, we have custom projects, where we can look at a particular project that you have in mind. That usually those are sizable projects, and again, every customer is different. So yeah, talk to us. Well, that's a good segue to my next question. I want to talk about the home experience. So there are aspects around AI integrations to make operations more predictive for the maintenance, more predictive to improve customer experience? And maybe you can touch also on the Wi-Fi aspect of it, if any, just general comments. But what's you guys
Well,
doing
sure. I
there?
mean, AI is a huge topic at Fiber Broadband Association. Just this morning, before this call, I had our Fiber for Breakfast every Wednesday, and the topic was agentic AI. We had a big AI pre-conference workshop at our conference. We've been putting out a lot of research on AI. We have a new AI working group on being able to generate all the different applications for AI for the fiber industry. And so, really, fiber AI is critical, and that's one of the reasons you have to have fiber. We also been working with Congress on, we had Fiber Day on the Hill in April. AI was a big area of that. And then there was recent hearings from Energy and Commerce, and in preparation for that meeting, we were able to prep Chairman Guthrie's staff on AI and what's going on with AI and fiber. And what we saw at the hearing is both sides of the aisle emphasize how critical AI is, I mean, how critical it is to have fiber for AI. And you mentioned Wi-Fi. So one of the other groups that is making really great progress is our in-home experience. And so again, when you have AI fiber home, be able to optimize your in-home experience with your Wi-Fi mesh networks and be able to not only get a gigabit or beyond to the side of your house, but you need to make sure that all your devices and your however you're distributing that, and mostly it's some type of Wi-Fi mesh home network is all optimized so that you're getting the maximum performance all over all your, whether it's all your smart devices. And also we had a great smart home exhibit at Fiber Connect, but your smart devices and your performance on all your devices. So whether you're streaming stuff on your phones or TVs or on your computers or however you're doing that on
So
your
is that a working group?
Peloton. Yes, we have a working group on both on AI and a working group on in-home experience.
Okay.
So we have
Okay.
about 20 different working groups developing industry best practices right now.
Okay.
Matter of fact, we have over 1,450 employees from our member companies that are serving on at least one committee or working group at FBA. So we have a lot of our industries really contributing to really advance our industry.
Okay. No, that's impressive. We spoke about policy, we spoke about technology. Let's talk about the money and how, fiber providers can monetize all those investments in CapEx and sweat and brain.
Well, last week at Fiber Connect I did Fiber Breakfast live on stage with James Feger, Lumen's network senior vice president who oversees their AI infrastructure strategy. And he shared with our audience on how Lumen is expanding its nationwide footprint, scaling to 47 million intercity fiber miles by 2028, and it's doubling down on its enterprise multi-cloud AI first world strategy. So clearly, AI is one of the largest driver of fiber deployment, but other key revenue opportunities for fiber is leasing of dark fiber for middle mile. We're seeing we're seeing a lot of consolidation in our industry, and so being able to connect all these networks, these last mile networks together with middle mile, is great opportunity to lease both lit and dark fiber. Also, smart grid modernization, public safety, and enterprise services. So, and then you can even look at some other areas like fiber optic sensing for whether it's security or looking for pipeline leaks or any kind of thing like that. So there's kind of a plethora of opportunities once you have critical fiber infrastructure in place.
Yeah. I mean, some of the fiber providers names you named are very active in the multi-dwelling unit space, for example. Is there like a particular focus on the MDU at the FBA?
Well, I would say there's a lot of things going on with MDUs. So our in-home experience would be largely on MDUs
Okay.
and also our deployment specialists, but we have a number of groups that kind of pollination on those areas.
All right. Okay. So let's move on to Latin America. I know that you have some initiatives going on in Brazil and elsewhere, and how those differ with US fiber deployments, and why are you interested in Latin America and what you intending to do?
Well, I'm part of the Fiber Council Global Alliance. So there's 6 regions around the world. We cover the whole world trying to get fiber to every home and business. So I'm responsible for the North America and Latin America chapters. And then my friends Vincent in Europe, Khaloud's in Middle East, Africa. We have Frank down in Asia, Juanita in South Africa. And then my president for Latin America is Lisa Poe, who's out of Corning. And so our Latin America chapter, we target 18 countries across the Latin America region. And in general, I would say Latin America is tracking about 2 years behind the US in fiber deployment, but is leading second only to Europe on their fiber-related sustainability initiatives.
Mhm.
So there are a lot of things that Latin America is teaching the rest of the world. But we do have a number of key partners down in the region. So one is a Brent, and they were at Fiber Connect. I really appreciate them coming up from Sao Paulo to see us last week in Nashville. And they had put us in a really prominent position in the center of the recent Brent Global Congress event that had 25,000 attendees.
Yeah. Final question here. How do you guys collaborate now with other organizations, standard bodies like Broadband Forum, Cable Labs, and others?
Yes, well, that's a great question. Really appreciate that one. So since I took over almost 5 years ago, and I had been working with Broadband Forum for decades and had a great appreciation for the organization. And so I didn't want to replicate the standards activity that they're involved in. So one of my good friends from decades is a guy named Ken Coe, who was the CEO of the Broadband Forum at the time. Now he's moved to Craig, is now the CEO. And so since the beginning, when I took over, we've had them at our conference to play a prominent role. And so basically, it's all the engineers that want to get into the deep dive on technical details. And so we started with pre-conference workshops, and now that's evolved into a full broadband forum track. So again, our working groups and our efforts have been on industry best practices and advocacy and training, while we let our partners at Broadband Forum really focus on developing and standardizing a lot of the technology standards. And then on Cable Labs, Curtis Nettle and the guys at Cable Labs, we love those guys. We have been making the Fiber Broadband Association is a very welcoming organization for the cable industry. We've continued to have cable tracks and try to be interesting to the cable industry. And Curtis has focused a lot of their work now on PON technology. So again, continuing time. We don't have the formalized relationship we have with Broadband Forum, but again, we enjoy working with the cable industry as they are all new builds are fiber to the home. Anywhere there's competitions, fiber to the home. And so, and for all the smaller cable providers, they've already moved 100% to fiber. It's just kind of the big ones that have a lot of, it's going to be a huge CapEx investment for them to get there. So, they'll be on some DOCSIS technology for a while, but again, we love those guys and just great partnerships.
Thank you. Well, I think that's all for today. It's a wrap. A lot of content in here today. Appreciate you sharing your insights and the great work you guys are doing, hoping to meet you in person and attending one of your events. In the meantime, I just can use Zoom to talk about them, but I certainly appreciate your participation today.
Well, hopefully we'll see you. If we don't see you in Argentina, we'll see you in Orlando next May for the Fiber Connect 2026. Thanks again for the opportunity. And yeah, it's just exciting times in the fiber industry.
Thank you, Gary.
All right.